there's this idea that you need AI specific hardware. How real is that, do you think? Do you think you can just have a Raspberry Pi talking to the cloud, or do you need a lot of on-device compute to win some of these AI fights?
I think so. We were talking about this earlier offline, but I think that there will always be more powerful compute, a faster experience in the
Yeah,
cloud, right? Like we were talking about separating this idea of latency and then the actual processing speed. And
right.
so, yeah, on device you can get better latency,
Yep.
but there will always be a bigger GPU at the Google warehouse or at the Microsoft Azure warehouse or at
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, of
Amazon
course.
AWS warehouse than there
Yep.
is in any consumer device. And so I don't think you actually need. So the only reason you would need a device to win this is because if you can make a better quote experience, at least from one angle on the cloud, then the reason you would really need a device that can run the stuff is if people care about either the equity they have in their compute and this tool, this powerful tool, that they actually own it, right? It's the owning versus renting argument, pretty much, although people don't see it that way, evidenced by their reaction to Sam's universal basic compute quote. And then, so do people actually care about, do people want that, or would they just want the best experience or the cheapest experience or whatever? Do they care about privacy? Do they care about your data flying around to people's servers? Do you trust the companies? There's like a bunch of questions, but I think based on the past, it seems like people don't care. People don't care about if you actually have the powerful device. You want the pretty device. People don't care if you have your photos stored in iCloud. You just care that you don't hit that out of storage thing, right? And so my
Yeah.
guess is that while I will always want the most powerful AI in your pocket device, my dream is like AirPods that have a M23 in them, and I don't have
Yeah,
any
yeah,
other
yeah.
device, and I'm just listening on my AirPods, pulling out the case to check the little screen whenever there's something that really requires a screen. Like that's me. I don't think that's the average person, and I think the average person wants the lowest switching cost, like lowest cost overall, easiest device that still gets them blue text messages. So long as we're talking to each other.
I mean, I think voice mode. So yeah, my counter to this is I think things like voice mode, if you can separate that from some of the higher compute tasks, and I know right now a lot of AI tasks take the same compute, but presumably that gets fixed in the future. What you would want is the voice on your phone to always respond quickly and humanly. You want it to be as close to talking
Mm-hmm.
to a human being as possible. Now, what it's doing in the background to generate an image. So, like, one scenario would be, make me a painting of my dog and have it be in the style of a Renaissance painter. If my voice is talking, saying, "Oh yeah, cool, let's do that." Hey, well, that's generating like blah blah blah, and then it comes back. If there's a separation between some of this compute and the continuous conversation, because the goal would be that people don't think about the fact that this is some big AI tool. They're just talking to their assistant. Things are happening. Certain things the AI assistant's doing for you takes loading, but your interaction with it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the dream. Because I think then you feel it's very human. At any time you can pull this up. You could be on a hike in the mountains and talk to your assistant. It might not be able to do certain things, but it could reassure you. So if I'm on a hike and I ask it to do an analysis of something like this plant, is this plant edible? And it's like, oh, that's a fascinating question, Chris. Let me look into that. It looks like I don't have a connection right now, but I can give you a result of that when we do get connection. What else is going on with your day? Feels much better than uh, like just that sort of stutter of a bad
Right.
signal. So I think you want some kind of local compute as a buffer when stuff's coming up and down the pipe.
I think that makes sense, and I think because there's no like sort of strictly easy to say this is the better solution here, right? It's like you're kind of getting pulled in both directions. Like
Right. Yep.
latency, you save on device. Lack of connection, like total blackout, you save on device, and then like processing speeds probably better in the cloud. Switching, upgrading to like
Yep.
improving over time, better in the cloud. And so it seems like this might end up being like a router problem. Like every company, including Google today, was talking about, like they pretty much showed the same graphic as Apple, where it was like, here's the phone, here's a model, here's a lock, here's the cloud,
Right. Right. Right.
here's a
Your
lock,
data's on
you
device. You're
know?
consenting to having it sent. Yeah. Yep.
Right. And so it's like some sort of routing problem where sometimes we send based on the query, based on the situation, the circumstances, whether that's the
Right.
connection or the query itself or the what you're asking for, how long it's going
Yep.
to take to
Yep.
process. Like I think that's probably the best solution for at least in service of user experience, just because there are some scenarios where latency will be more important. There's some scenarios where this response speed will be more important. And so, yeah, you got to route situationally.
And I think for a lot of the companies, there's an incentive to sell more hardware too. So even if you could make this thing a very low compute device that just pings the server, I think there's a ton of incentive to want to buy the iPhone 20 or whatever, right? And so you want to sell the idea that your experience, because eventually your relationship, if this happens, if we get the AI assistants of our dreams, things that improve your relationship with this thing will be incredibly valuable. And so if they can pitch the new device as somehow enhancing that, they're going to do that, even if at a compute level they didn't need to. So there's a lot of incentive to do that, I think. And so you're going to see people push regardless of the tech constraints, I think.
I think so too. And I think you'll see people, I think you'll see some weird behavior, honestly, from these companies.
Yeah.
Because I think as you, like, we're taking this from a user perspective right now. What's going to give the best user experience? But I think you're going to see a lot of funky shit with this AI revolution. Like, a lot of squirrely stuff that doesn't quite. Why are they doing that? Or why? Like,
you're already seeing funky. I mean, like.
Oh, you already are for sure. And there's so many weird. Oh, I'm talking about the real companies. But yes, there's the pins. But like, I mean, yes, there are certainly funky things that maybe shouldn't exist. But I even think like, yeah, could we assume what Apple's going to do because it's going to give the best UX? Like, I don't know. If we haven't figured into the fact that iPhone sales are falling off a cliff, then then we keep right. Like, that is going to come first. Like, that is going to come before.
But they're the master at pitching that as a better UX, right? They're like, oh no, this is actually better for you. And
I mean, that's how they do it, because they've put so much sort of stock in we're the UX company. So if they ship deliberately bad UX, they have to justify it. Yes.
Right.